Today, we're looking inside one of the most feared gangs in history, and the women who helped make its reputation even more terrifying. Chapter 1. Luis Escobar, also known as La Diablita. Lenis Escobar, also known as La Diablita, became one of the most closely watched figures in an MS-13 case that drew national attention. In April 2017, 4 teenage boys were killed in Central Islip, New York, after being lured to a wooded area where gang members were waiting. A 15 escaped and later helped investigators understand what happened. Escobar was accused of helping bring the victims to the location and of taking part in the events that led to the attack. Authorities said Escobar used social media and communication with gang members to support the plan. She was not accused of carrying out the attack herself, but prosecutors argued that her role was essential. They said she helped set the trap by gaining the victims' trust and directing them to the park. Investigators also pointed to messages and online activity that linked her to MS-13 associates. The trial focused on whether Escobar was simply a young person trying to belong or an active participant in a violent conspiracy. Prosecutors said the evidence showed intent and planning. The defense argued that she was influenced by older gang members and that her age and background should be considered. In the end, the jury found her guilty on multiple counts, including racketeering and murder-related charges. At sentencing, the court treated her role as serious and deliberate. She received a 50-year prison sentence. Her case became a major example of how organized gangs can involve young people in serious crimes without them being the ones who physically carry them out. It also showed how online behavior, peer pressure, and personal relationships can be used to support criminal activity. Chapter 2. Carla Jacqueline Morales. Carla Jacqueline Morales was accused in a separate MS-13 related case in Houston, Texas. In 2018, a young man was found dead in a remote area, and investigators later said Morales played a central role in helping arrange the meeting that led to his death. According to prosecutors, she used a personal connection with the victim to gain his trust and bring him to a location where gang members were waiting. Authorities said Morales was connected to a local MS-13 clique and worked with others to coordinate the events before and after the killing. Phone records, surveillance footage, and witness statements were used to support the case. Prosecutors argued that she helped make the attack possible even though she did not carry it out herself. The case drew attention because Morales did not fit the image many people have of a gang associate. She had no major criminal record and did not appear outwardly dangerous. That made the case more disturbing for many observers, because it showed how someone can blend into everyday life while still playing a serious role in violent crime. In 2020, Morales was convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison. Her case is often discussed as an example of how trust can be manipulated in gang-related crimes. It also shows how investigators rely on digital records and communication patterns to reconstruct what happened. Even when someone is not the person holding the weapon, prosecutors can still argue that their actions were critical to the crime. Chapter 3. Lydia del Carmen Rodriguez. Lydia del Carmen Rodriguez was connected to another MS-13 case involving the death of a 15-year-old boy in New York. Prosecutors said the victim had left the gang, and that decision made him a target. In gang culture, leaving can be treated as betrayal, and investigators said Rodriguez helped arrange the meeting that led to the attack. Authorities alleged that she communicated with the victim before the killing and helped bring him to the location where other gang members were waiting. Phone records, text messages, and surveillance evidence were used to show how the plan came together. Prosecutors said her role was not accidental or minor, but part of a coordinated effort to carry out the crime. What made the case stand out was that Rodriguez did not match the stereotypical image of a gang enforcer. She was described as someone who could easily blend in, which made her involvement more surprising. Investigators said her actions helped facilitate the attack, even though she did not directly carry out the violence. That distinction became central during the trial. Rodriguez later pleaded guilty in federal court. Her plea acknowledged her role in the case and helped avoid a harsher sentence, though she still received a long prison term. The case reinforced how gang violence can depend on more than physical force. Planning, coordination, and manipulation can be just as important to the crime as the final act itself. Chapter 4. Sylvia Lorena Bonilla de Jandres. Sylvia Lorena Bonilla de Jandres was arrested in Northern Virginia in 2022 after authorities linked her to MS-13 related offenses in El Salvador. Unlike the earlier cases, her alleged role focused more on financial and organizational support than on direct violence. Prosecutors said she was involved in extortion-related activity and in managing communications and payments connected to the gang. Investigators believed she helped keep the operation running behind the scenes. That included organizing money flows, communicating with others, and helping maintain the structure that allowed the gang to function. Authorities said this kind of role is often overlooked, but it can be just as important as the violence the gang is known for. In organized crime cases, financial coordination is often what keeps the larger system moving. After her arrest, U.S. officials worked with Salvadoran authorities on extradition. She was returned to El Salvador to face charges there. Prosecutors presented financial records, phone data, and witness statements to support their case. Her defense denied that she was still involved with the gang, but investigators argued that the evidence showed ongoing participation. This case highlights how transnational gangs operate across borders. It also shows that some members never appear on the front lines. They may handle money, communications, and logistics while others carry out the more visible crimes. In that sense, the people working behind the scenes can still be deeply involved in the gang's criminal activity. Closing. These 4 cases show different ways people can become tied to MS-13. Some were accused of helping lure victims. Others were linked to planning, coordination, or support roles. None of the cases were about random chaos. Each one involved a chain of decisions that investigators said helped violent crimes happen. What makes these stories especially disturbing is that several of the people involved were young and seemed ordinary on the surface. That is part of what makes gang-related cases so difficult to recognize early. They often involve trust, online communication, secrecy, and pressure from people close to the suspect. In the end, these cases serve as a reminder that gang violence is not always limited to the person holding a weapon. It can also involve the people who plan, persuade, arrange, or help hide what happened. That is what makes these stories so serious, and why investigators treated each of them as part of a larger criminal network.